So, can we start the session? See, already I told you yesterday in the demo session that we are not starting DevOps. We are going to spend some time initially on understanding cloud and also on understanding Linux commands. Only when you are comfortable with the basics of Linux and cloud, then we'll start the actual DevOps sessions. Now, approximately this will take somewhere around 10 days or so. Worst case, 8 days, 7, 8 days or more. We have to spend on this initial part. Then we'll start the actual DevOps training. Okay. I already talked about this also. Though currently your session is happening from 9 a.m. to 9:45 a.m., the actual session timings will be 9:30 to 10:30. That's the actual class timing because currently we are working on introduction towards DevOps. We are having on a different time. Okay. But once the actual course starts, it becomes 9:30 to 10:30. Okay. Fine. Now, I'll not directly go into cloud. First, I'll start with a very simple scenario. Most of the DevOps tools that we are going to learn, remember yesterday I talked about Jenkins, Docker, Ansible, various tools. Most of these tools work on Linux machines in your organization. They can be done on Windows also, but in your real time, mostly they implement it on Linux-based machines. 95% or more of the servers worldwide are running on Linux. But people like you and me don't use Linux machines. We use Windows machines, or if you are a rich person, you might use a Mac machine. We don't use Linux machines. But in your organization, servers generally run on Linux. What is the reason for that? Okay, correct. That's true. And what else? Performance is much more higher. The hardware utilization of Linux machines is comparatively less, which means in less amount of hardware, they can perform more activities. Whereas your Windows machines and Mac machines, they consume more amount of hardware resources. Like this, some advantages and disadvantages are there. Now, from a DevOps engineer's perspective, we don't require extraordinary Linux administration knowledge, but we do require some basic understanding of Linux commands. Hardly some 30 to 40 commands will be there. If you are comfortable with those 30, 40 commands, we are good enough. Okay, nothing more than that. See, for example, let us imagine that you are someone who has never seen a computer. I will show you a computer for the first time, a Windows computer. To understand the Windows operating system, how to create files and all that, it doesn't take much time. If you're an educated person, I can show you in 1 or 2 days and you will understand how to work on the basic navigations of a Windows computer. Similarly, the same thing on a Linux also. It's not really difficult. The only difference is on your Windows, you perform activities via what we call as graphical user interface. Whereas on the Linux machines, we perform activities using CLI, command line interface, which means everything you do via commands. That's the only thing we have to keep in mind. For see, I want to create a file on my Windows computer. What will I do? I'll just right click somewhere. I'll click on new. I click on file. This is the process you follow because your Windows is supporting graphical capabilities. On a Linux machine, to perform the same activity, I have to depend on commands. That's the only difference. Okay. Now, what we will do is, because we don't use Linux machines, the solution is, I will tell that, okay, starting from today, next 5 classes, I will teach you Linux. Just imagine. For practicing these 5 classes of Linux, will you go and buy a Linux computer? Difficult, right? Very difficult because I have to spend some 50, 60,000 if you want to buy a separate machine. It's difficult. So I will provide the solution. I will tell, I have a Linux machine. I will give it to you on rent. Every 1 hour, you pay me 10 rupees. You people know that you will practice Linux only for 4-5 hours. So you are happy, I am happy. You know that, okay, 4-5 hours, 40-50 rupees. If I wind up, it's over. Rather than buying a computer, which is 50,000 rupees, I will take a computer on rent. Every 1 hour, that fellow is telling, give me only 10 rupees. So I will practice for 5-6 hours. 50 or 60 rupees, finish. I can wash off my hands. That is what cloud is. Whenever we use the word cloud, whether you call it as AWS cloud or Azure cloud or Google cloud, what are they doing? Cloud and megal kaadu. They are just giving you infrastructure on rent. I don't have a Linux machine. AWS people have a Linux machine. They are telling that you use it. Depending on the hardware configurations, you pay me the rent for that. You are not buying the Linux machine. The Linux machine is owned by the AWS cloud or Azure cloud. You are just using it for 1 hour. If you are using, so much money you have to pay. 10 hours if you are using, so much money you have to pay. So whenever people use the word cloud, people generally get confused. Cloud is nothing but infrastructure on rent. Computers, I want a computer. I don't have a computer. So what I will do, I am taking a computer on rent from someone. That rent, who is giving you, that service provider, is what we call as a cloud. Why organizations are going too much into the cloud usage, I will tell you with a simple example so that you can understand that better. Now, let's say tomorrow you want to start your own software company. Just imagine, okay, you are having some 10 years of experience in the IT industry. With this much knowledge, 10 years experience, you feel that I want to start my own company. But the problem is you have limited money with you, because all these days you are working as an employee. So salaried person, you have limited money, but you have knowledge. 10 years you worked in the IT industry. You know how the complete software development flow happens. You have some contacts with the clients. Now you want to bring some projects and you want to start your own software development company. When I say software development company, what I require? I require some employees. I require some developers. I require some testers, system engineers, like that. Some employees I have to hire. When I hire employees, first thing I have to do is I have to pay them salaries. By the end of the month, I have to pay them salaries. They are going to wait for the salaries. Fine, I'll give salaries. The next thing is I have to take a office premises which I have to take on rent. Every month I have to pay so much rent for that office premises. Fine, that also I have done. And next, once I get a project, I get a client, the customer's information to store, I have to purchase servers, computers, not regular computers, high configuration computers. How much do you think is the cost of a simple computer can be? Server. Our regular computers itself, you are spending almost 1 lakh on it. 70,000 or 1 lakh you are spending on a simple laptop. Server, worst case, you have to spend 10 lakhs. One server, if I am spending 10 lakhs, let us say I have to purchase 5 or 6 servers. నా దగ్గర ఈచ్ కుడితే నా దగ్గర ఉన్నాయి 20-30 లక్షలు. The total amount I have is only 20-30 lakhs. With that 20-30 lakhs itself, I am starting a business. What will happen to buy the servers itself? Whatever money I have, all that money is lost. Once the servers are purchased, to maintain the servers, again, I have to hire engineers, system admins. I have to give continuous electricity to the servers. AC cooling should be there. All these headaches I have to take care. A small scale company like me with limited budget feels that this much burden I cannot take. Buying the servers at 10 lakhs itself is too much expenditure for me. So what I will do, I will go to a cloud. AWS cloud. AWS fellow tells, I will give you the server. Don't purchase the server. I'll give you the server. Daily, how much time you are using. Accordingly, you pay me rent for that. So practically, we are not the owner of the machine. The owner of the machine is cloud, AWS or Azure or some other cloud. According to the hardware configurations of the machine, according to the time that you are using, you are paying them money. So we call this model as pay as you go model. Pay as you go model. అంటే మీరు హై కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ సర్వర్ తీసుకున్నారనుకోండి, ఎక్కువ రెంట్ కట్టమంటాడు. లో కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ సర్వర్ తీసుకున్నారనుకోండి, తక్కువ రెంట్ కడతారు. If you are taking a machine which is having more hardware configuration, the cloud fellow will tell you pay me more rent for that. If you are taking a server with less configuration, you will pay less amount for that. Why this is really useful for your companies, I'll tell you. Imagine I purchased a server. I spent 10 lakhs and I purchased a server. Server is super. It's having high hardware configurations. But any business you take will not have a smooth flow. Any kind of business, it will have ups and downs. There are certain times when people will have a lot of business and sometimes when low business will be there. See, You go to your Chandana Brothers and RS Brothers during Dasara, Deepavali or Christmas. What happens? The number of people who come to their store and purchase clothes will be more. Or marriage seasons. If there is some marriage season, then also you will notice that the number of people visiting those shopping malls will be more. In regular days, it can be dry. So what does that mean? It means that every business has a peak days and it also has low performance days. Now, you purchase the server keeping in mind that, okay, at any point of time, 1,000 people will be accessing my application. Thinking like that, I purchased a high configuration server. Fine, that's okay. But from January to June, you know that your business is dry. Not 1,000 people, only 10 people are accessing your application. But what happened? You already purchased a high configuration server, which is capable of handling 1,000 people, but you are using it only to a level of 10 people. Unnecessarily, hardware utilization is wasted. You already invested on that server. You paid money, you bought it for 10 lakhs, but you are using it only for 10 people. Whenever more number of people are accessing, that's okay. But when less traffic is hitting that application, unnecessarily you have a high configuration machine, you are not using it. See, it is like, let's say tomorrow you go and buy a 1,000cc bike. Okay, some Harley Davidson or something 1,000cc bike you buy. But after buying it, you are afraid to drive it at the maximum speed. You are driving at 20 kilometer speed. What do you call that as? Unnecessarily wastage of resources. You spent almost 15-20 lakhs on buying a high configuration bike which can go at a very fast speed, but because of our incapability we are running at 20 kilometers or 25 kilometers speed, which I can do with a bicycle also. You are understanding? All this headache is not there when you go with a cloud. Cloud says that when your business is at peak level, you take a high configuration machine, pay rent for that. When your business is at low level, you take a small configuration machine, you pay rent only for that. Understanding? So thinking like this, because you are not the owner of the servers, someone else is the owner. According to the usage, you are paying the rent. That is what cloud is generally doing. Now, these clouds are again categorized into multiple types. One is called public cloud, private cloud, community cloud. Like this, different types of clouds are there. We will try to explain all those things as we go with the sessions. Okay. Public cloud ante what we use? Amazon, Azure. The servers are maintained on the Amazon data center. Servers are maintained on the Azure data center. Private cloud means, let's say I am working for a high secure application. There's some banking application or something like that. I want to go with cloud only, but I feel that cloud means you are putting the data in some other person's hand because all your data is present on their servers. I have doubts on them. So what I will do, I'll tell them to establish a private cloud. What is the meaning of private cloud? AWS people will come to my company. In my company, they will set up the servers. The owner of the server is still AWS only. But what is the physical location of the server? It is present in my company. AWS fellow will put an employee also to handle those servers. That employee will be sitting in my office and he will be controlling those servers. That's what we call as a private cloud. Private cloud ante kuda the owner is AWS or Azure. But the physical servers are not present on the AWS data centers. They are present in your office. Okay, more secure. And it's more expensive also. AWS will tell you have to pay more money because I am dedicatedly giving you some servers, dedicatedly giving you employees to handle that. That's called as a private cloud. What is community cloud? Community cloud is a type of private cloud which is shared between multiple businesses. Okay, for example, let us say I am running a training institute called IntelliQIT here. Now I want to go with a private cloud, but I feel that private cloud is more expensive. I don't have that much money. Public cloud, I am not okay with public cloud because I don't want to put the data in someone's hand. I want to maintain a private cloud, but I don't have that much money to handle the private cloud. So what I will do, I will tie up with other institutes in Amirpet. Opposite institute, institutes in the ground floor. I'll talk to them. I'll tell all of us will set up a private cloud. We'll talk to the AWS fellow. AWS fellow will set up a private cloud. That private cloud will be used by all our institutes here. Only our institutes can use. Other people cannot touch it. That's called as a community cloud. అర్థమవుతుందా? These are nothing. Basically, cloud is nothing but infrastructure on rent. Someone else is giving you the infrastructure. You are using it. How much time you are using, accordingly, you need to pay. Okay. Now, what I want you people to do today, once the class is over, is I will be showing you how to create the servers on the AWS cloud. I'll also show you how you can create these servers on the Google Cloud and also on the Azure Cloud. All three clouds I'll show you. But I recommend that you people stick to one cloud. Initially, you stick only to one cloud. AWS account, if you create now, it is free for 6 months. GCP account is free for 3 months. And this is free only for 1 month. Just keep that one thing in mind. So you're not spending any money. As a student, we are working on the free account of either AWS or GCP or Azure. Initially itself, just because you have a credit card or debit card, don't create all three clouds. Just create only one cloud. Anything is okay. Doesn't matter. Just stick to one single cloud, because from all these clouds, all I require is what? I need a Linux machine. The Linux machine, you can take it from AWS or Google Cloud or Azure. I will show you how you can do it on all the three clouds. But again, I'm repeating, to avoid confusion, you people stick only to one cloud. Okay? Incorrectly. Sometimes, I hear this kind of stupid statement coming from once in a while from students. It's because of lack of understanding. They say that, okay, initially I'm telling that I'll show you how to create the Linux server on all the three clouds. And after that, when I start the practical Linux sessions, I can use any of the clouds. It means the same. There is no difference. Because if someone tells you that I know how to use an iPhone because I have purchased it from Amazon.com. You purchased it from Flipkart, the same iPhone. I don't know how to use it. What do you call that fellow? You are understanding what I'm saying? Amazon, Flipkart, all these are just different vendors. They are giving you the same iPhone. One person can purchase it from Amazon, some other person can take it from Flipkart, or you might directly go to the shop, retailer, and you can purchase the same iPhone. The only difference is offers. One fellow tells that on HDFC cards, I'll give you some offers. Another fellow tells on Kotak Mahindra card, I'll give you some offers. But the end product that you are purchasing is the same iPhone. The performance of the iPhone remains the same. Whether I take it from Amazon.com or I take it from Flipkart.com. Similarly, all we are trying to create is a Linux server. On which cloud you are creating the Linux server does not matter. I hope you are understanding. AWS, GCP, Azure, all these are like your Amazon, Flipkart. They are giving you iPhones. These cloud people are giving you a Linux server. You can just depend on whichever cloud you want, the same Linux commands will work. And it's not like AWS Linux, Azure Linux, itla levu. Linux is Linux only. Linux is just a operating system. That Linux machine, you can take it from AWS cloud or Azure cloud or GCP, or if you don't want the clouds, you can create these Linux machines on your personal computer via a software which is called as Vagrant. Let's say you don't even want the cloud. I feel I don't want the cloud. I want to create Linux machine on my personal computer. That also I will show you. We can do that with the help of a tool called as Vagrant. ఇంకప్పుడు ఇంకా cloud తో పని లేదు. You're not depending on some cloud. You are creating the Linux machines on your personal computer and you're practicing. I hope everyone is understanding. So initially, we are not focusing on the cloud. We are focusing on the Linux machines. In order to create a Linux machine, I am telling that either you create a Linux machine on the cloud or on your personal computer you create with the help of a technology called as Vagrant. మనకి కావాల్సింది లైనక్స్ మెషిన్. ఆ లైనక్స్ మెషిన్ మీరు క్లౌడ్ నుంచి తీసుకుంటారా, మీ పర్సనల్ కంప్యూటర్లో క్రియేట్ చేస్తారా అనేది క్రైటీరియా కాదు. మనకి లైనక్స్ మెషిన్ కావాలి. ఆ లైనక్స్ మెషిన్ వస్తే లైనక్స్ కమాండ్స్ నేర్చుకోవడం మొదలు పెడతాం. ఐ థింక్ ఎవ్రీవన్ ఈస్ అండర్స్టాండింగ్, రైట్? Fine. This was just the basic introduction. So, see this. Let me categorize it like this. For practicing our DevOps sessions, I require a Linux server. This Linux server, you can do it on your personal computer itself via a software called as Vagrant, or you can depend on the cloud. Okay, sorry, you can depend on the cloud. Which cloud you can depend on? As I mentioned, either you can depend on AWS cloud or Azure cloud or on the GCP. Any of these three clouds is okay. I will show you all these processes. You people just stick to one process. Okay. If you are happy with Vagrant, no need to touch the cloud part for now. If you are happy with the AWS cloud, just leave the other components. Our focus is currently only on creating a Linux machine. From where you create it, it does not matter. ఎందుకంటే లైనక్స్ కమాండ్స్ నేను ప్రాక్టికల్గా మీకు చూపించాలి అంటే ముందుగా నా దగ్గర ఒక లైనక్స్ మెషిన్ ఉండాలి. If I want to show you how to practice Linux machine, Linux commands, first of all, we should have a Linux machine. We don't have Linux machines. We have Windows machines or Mac machines. So we are starting our sessions by understanding how to create these Linux servers on the cloud. Okay. So I think everyone is clear with that, right? Sorry. What I want you to do is, once my class is over, as I told you, try to create a free account on AWS or GCP or Azure. Anything is okay. You require a working debit card or credit card to do that. They will deduct 2 rupees from your credit card to validate that it is a genuine account. But as I said, nothing to worry. It is free. AWS account is free for 6 months. So without paying any extra amount, you will be able to create the servers and practice everything. Okay. So please, once the class is over, just go into Google and say AWS sign up. See, yeah, AWS sign up. And here you can, this is what they are asking. What are they asking? They're asking you to enter some email ID and also some AWS account name. When you do that, they will send you a verification code to your email. Okay. That verification code you have to enter. Like that, this is the first page. Approximately, you people will navigate through 5 or 6 screens in the same way, where they will ask for your postal address, your physical address. Okay. They will ask for your PAN card. They will ask for your debit card or credit card information. You need to provide that information. 2 rupees they will take from your debit card or credit card to just validate that it is a genuine account, and then your account gets ready. You can start using that account. Now, sign up process you should be able to do on your own. Okay, it's not difficult. In case you're not able to do, just ask the lab coordinators. They'll sit with you and they'll try to help you. Just a second. I think, yeah, I'll just show you the screens of how the sign up of AWS actually looks like. See, you are coming to this AWS and you're clicking on create a new AWS account. And then as we saw, it's asking for your email ID and your account name. And then they are asking you to verify your email ID. They are sending a verification code. You just need to enter that verification code. And after that, they are asking you to enter some password. For your AWS account, you set up some password. That's called as the root password. And after password, they're asking you want to use it for business purpose or personal purpose. Go with personal only. And then give your full name, your phone number, and your address. And after that, you see, they are asking, this is your credit card or debit card information. And then do you have a PAN card? You give your PAN number details. They are going to deduct 2 rupees from your account. And after that, they're asking you what is the primary purpose of your account registration. Select as student. Okay. And then they're asking your personal information like your date of birth, your PAN number, etc. And finally, to your phone number, whatever phone number you give, they will send a text message. SMS they'll send. You enter that SMS and your account is ready. Okay, అంతే ఇంతకుమించి కష్టమే ఉండదు. It just requires a valid working card. Try to do it. In case you are stuck up somewhere, you can contact the lab coordinators. In case your AWS account sign up is successful, for now, don't attempt to create Azure accounts or Google Cloud accounts. You can see that later. Because, Even if your intention is to learn DevOps with Azure, the problem is Azure account will work only for 1 month. At this point of time, you don't require a Azure account. You can just create a AWS account. That will be sufficient. This is more lasting. 6 months it will work, right? Free of cost. So I recommend this. Same process in case you don't even want to touch AWS, you try to create an account on Azure. Portal.azure.com. The website is portal.azure.com. There also that fellow will ask for your debit card, credit card, and all that information. And that account will work for only 28 days. Okay. GCP also the same thing. It works for 90 days. GCP lo chinna tallnoppi undi. I'll talk about that tomorrow. GCP account gets created, but when you are trying to create the Linux servers, there is one small headache over there. We'll talk about that a little later. Okay. Fine. So if you sign up these clouds for today, tomorrow what I will do is in tomorrow's session, I will show you how you can create the Linux servers on the cloud. See, I want you people, if you are coming from non-technical background, become comfortable with some of the terminology that we generally use here. Your personal computer in your organization, when it's running on much more higher hardware, people generally call that machine as a server. Server is nothing but a computer. Okay. AWS fellow doesn't call it as a server. AWS fellow calls that as a instance. When they say instance, it is nothing but a computer. The terms are different. On Azure, they call it as a VM, virtual machine. Okay, that is the name that Azure fellow gives. They call it as a virtual machine. Google Cloud people will call it as VM instance. All these are nothing but computer. ఓకే ఆ పదాలు విని ఏదో నేర్చేసుకుంటున్నామేమో అనుకోకండి. ఇట్స్ జస్ట్ అ కంప్యూటర్. ఎవ్రీ వన్ ఈస్ గివింగ్ దేర్ ఓన్ నేమ్స్ ఫర్ దాట్. ఓకే, ఆన్ ద AWS cloud you are calling it as a instance. Your Linux machine I'm calling as a instance. On Azure you are calling it as a virtual machine, and here on Google Cloud they are calling it as a virtual machine instance. All of them are nothing but your Linux servers that we are trying to create. Okay, nothing beyond that. Okay, to create the servers on the cloud, any cloud, whether it is AWS or GCP or Azure, all you require is simple navigations. There's no rocket science involved. For example, how do you send a mail from your Gmail? You go to your Gmail, you click on compose mail, you give CC, BCC and all that, you compose the mail and then you click on send. So basically, sending the mail is happening via some navigations. You log in and you do some navigations and you send a mail. The same thing happens on the cloud also. Whether you are working on AWS or Azure, whichever cloud you are working on, if you want to create a server, you need to log in into your account and you have to perform some basic navigations, very basic navigations. Via those navigations, we'll be able to create the server. If you people are new to the cloud, these navigations you have to just watch once or twice, because that AWS interface is new for you. You are looking at the AWS dashboard for the first time. You need to watch those navigations once or twice just to understand how you are creating the server. Once you do that, it's over. Nothing difficult. Okay. Now, let's understand some basic terminology that we generally use when we are working on the Linux-based machines. When we talk about the Linux operating system, Linux is called as an open source operating system. What is the meaning of open source? It is freely downloadable. The source code is freely downloadable and you can make changes to it. You can customize it. Not only is Linux is free, the code is also available. You can make whatever modifications you want. So what is happening? This open source operating system, which is called as Linux, is taken by a company called Red Hat. And they are adding their own masala. They are adding their own flavors to it. And they are releasing a flavor of Linux, which they are calling as Red Hat Linux. Another company called Canonical is giving another flavor of Linux, which is called as Ubuntu. Okay. Similarly, there is another flavor of Linux, which is called as CentOS. Oracle people have their own flavor of Linux, which is called as OEL, Oracle Enterprise Linux. So in this way, n number of flavors of Linux are actually available. AWS people have their own Linux, which they call as Amazon Linux. Similarly, you have something called as Kali Linux. There is something called as Fedora. So basically, all these are basically different flavors of Linux operating system. Flavors ante they are coming from different communities, different organizations. The basic Linux commands that we are going to learn will work on any flavor of Linux. Okay, so most of the times I will be working either on Red Hat Linux machines or on Ubuntu servers. The reason is these are the flavors of Linux which are most widely used in the industry. So we will also work on either Ubuntu machines or Red Hat Linux machines. Having said that, tomorrow if your company is using Oracle Enterprise Linux or Amazon Linux, the basic Linux commands that we are going to see will work everywhere. Things are not going to change. So don't think that, okay, if I'm showing a Linux command on Ubuntu, the same Linux command will work on other flavors also. At the level of Linux administration, things will change. But the basic Linux commands will remain the same everywhere. So please don't worry about that. Chudandi, if I'm not wrong, I was using Windows since Windows 98 or 2000. Since those days, I was using Windows. Now it is currently Windows 11 version that we are using. In this, 15 years or 20 years, probably the Microsoft community might have released some 12 or 15 flavors of Windows operating system. On all these flavors, certain basic operations are common. How do you start a machine? How do you shut down a machine? How do you create a file? Those kind of basic components are same, irrespective of so many changes that they have done. Similarly, the basic Linux commands that we are going to see will work on any flavor of Linux. Things are not going to change. Okay. Now, this also I mentioned earlier. The Linux machines that we are going to create on the cloud, they support only command line interface. Your Windows operating system is supporting both command line interface and it also supports graphical user interface. But the Linux machines do not support graphical user interface. They support only command line interface. And the command prompt of your Linux machine, where you execute the Linux commands, is commonly called as a terminal. Terminal is simply the command prompt of your Linux machine where we will be executing the Linux commands from tomorrow. Whatever Linux commands I'm teaching, you execute on a terminal. See, on your Windows machine also, I'm sure you people know that there is a DOS command prompt. Okay, here you can run the DOS commands. Similarly, on your Windows computer, you have something called as PowerShell. This PowerShell supports to some extent Linux commands and also Windows related advanced administration activities. This is the command line interface of your Windows machine. Similarly, Linux machines also have a command prompt and that command prompt is called as the terminal. Okay, terminal is just the command prompt. Okay, now. And the basic architecture of how your Linux operating system actually looks like. See, generally what happens is you have the underlying hardware. On top of the hardware, you have your innermost layer of Linux operating system, which we call as a kernel, Kernel. And on top of the kernel, the outer layer of your Linux operating system is called as a shell. Generally, whenever we use the word Linux OS, it is a combination of shell and kernel. Shell and kernel combined together, we are calling it as the Linux OS. What is a shell? See, I am sitting here and I am executing some Linux command. That Linux command is taken by a application called as shell. And that shell will perform that activity on the kernel. Okay. As a normal user, you don't directly interact with the kernel. Whatever Linux commands we are going to learn from tomorrow, they will be processed by an application called as shell. And shell will pass that command to another application called kernel, which performs the actual processing and all that. So you can tell that shell is the connection between a human being and the OS. The innermost Linux OS, we are calling it as a kernel. The connection between a human being and the innermost kernel, that is what we are calling as a shell. Okay, shell is just a program which is taking your commands, it is processing those commands, and it is performing some activity on the innermost layer of your OS, which we are calling as a kernel. Okay, Linux comes with multiple types of shells. The most popular shell that we generally use is called as the bash shell. Okay, bash is just one of the shells. Like, I told you Linux comes with multiple flavors: Ubuntu, Red Hat Linux, CentOS. Similarly, the shell also comes from multiple vendors. Bash shell is the most popular shell. That is why in interviews also, when they are asking you shell scripting, sometimes they will simply mention bash scripting. Do you know bash scripting? Bash scripting is nothing but working on this particular shell called as the bash shell. Okay, so today, I just wanted to give you a basic introduction on what is Linux and all that. And I'm also expecting that out of the 3 clouds, you please try to create account on any one single cloud. In tomorrow's session, I am going to show you how to create the Linux servers on all the 3 clouds. It's just navigations. Via simple navigations, I'll show you how to create the Linux server on both, AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. You people are going to stick to only one single cloud and practice. For some reason, if you are unable to create an account on the cloud, your card is not working, or for some reason you are not able to do, I already told you one more alternative. That alternative also I will show you. That is called as Vagrant. Via Vagrant, we'll create the Linux server on our personal computer. But for Vagrant to work, you need to have a computer with decent hardware configurations. 10 years back laptop, if you bring, we cannot work on Vagrant. Okay. Cloud means any Dakota machine we can manage because servers are created on the cloud. You just require a computer which can connect to the internet. But if you are trying to create the Linux machine on your personal computer via Vagrant, obviously you require a computer which is having decent hardware. Otherwise, it will not work. So I'll show you all these 4 mechanisms of how to create the Linux servers in tomorrow's session. And once we do that, we'll move into the hardcore activity of working on the Linux commands and all that. Okay. So I think for today, this is sufficient. Putty is just a interface which is helping you to connect to the Linux servers. Tomorrow we'll create the Linux servers on the cloud or on our machine via Vagrant. To access the terminal, Putty is one tool which will help you to do that. That's it. Yeah, we will use it. We'll use Putty, Git Bash, any of these tools we'll use. We'll connect to the Linux servers. Okay. So that's it for today. Okay, we'll wind up for the session. Tomorrow we'll continue with some more components. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, online students, you too can leave if you don't have any questions. Okay. Tomorrow I'll move into the practical part of creating the Linux servers. So ensure that you people have created some cloud account. Any cloud is okay, friends.